if I'm having this problem, a lot of people are having this problem. So what would it take for me to get whatever equipment I would need to do this? And if I had the lowest prices around, and that was one of my best selling points, and fast turnaround time because everywhere else took forever. So I'm like, there's got to be a market for this.
He's the data guy and he wants to have a talk with his business pals while they're off the clock on podcast like a business.
All right. Hello and welcome back to PodcastLAB. Today we have with us Dave Maiden. Dave actually is a guy I met just recently, but what he's doing is so interesting. I had to beg him to be on the show. I actually trusted Dave with my own personal historical family videos of when I was, 4 or 5, getting married, all those very important things. So he's one of those people I had to really do my own research on. And when I met him, I said, this guy really resonates with what we're doing here on the show. And so, Dave, thank you very much for joining us today. I would love to know how you use data. And we were talking a little bit about it in your video conversion business, because that is such a dying art form right now. It was hard for me to even find somebody to do that, much less somebody I was willing to trust with that. So just how you use data. I saw a Facebook ad is how I saw it. So you could talk about some of that, but I know you had data in your history before you were a digital guru, as it were. I would love to know how you got into digital guruing and take us down your path.
Sure, absolutely. And Rob and Ryan, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you. And I'm really honored that you guys gave me this opportunity. So I'd be more than happy to tell you about sort of how the business began and a little about myself and my background and how data applied to all of that. I guess I'll start with going way back, starting from the beginning, making a long story short. I went to school for criminal justice and had it in mind that I did not want to go into policing, but I wanted to go into corporate security and investigations. So did exactly that and worked for a Fortune 500 company. Did, like I said, corporate investigations involving theft and workplace violence, fraud, things of that nature. And then in one of my roles, I was managing our GSOC, which is Global Security Operations Center. And what that is sort of the eyes and ears of the company, access to camera systems, alarm systems, access control, and we would monitor global events to see if and how those might impact our employees, our facilities, or our supply chain. So you can imagine a ton of data coming in that way, as far as just world news, weather data. We would track hurricanes and earthquakes and things like that. So a lot going on. So one instance which I wanted to bring up was it was pretty serious because it involved potentially life and death situation. It was October 1st of 2017. And what that was you recall the Las Vegas mass shooting. So I was at home at the time. It happened in the evening. I was at home, and the person who was working in the room at the time called me right away because we had, going into some of the tools that we had that would give us the data, we always said, if you're learning about an incident on the news, it's already way too late. Like, we should be finding out about these things long before they hit news coverage. So we had a really great tool that would monitor tweets. Like, we would set up a geofence around our facilities all across the country.
Sure.
And what it would do is, if all of a sudden there was a large spike in tweets in a certain area, it would look into that and start tracking keywords and what's going on. So there was a whole timeline and a graph, and right around Las Vegas, a spike that goes right through the roof of tweets and people saying mass shooting, casualties, shooter. So we're like, whoa, okay, we got to get on this.
Wow. Like live, you're talking as it's happening, like tweet.
Within minutes. So then we had another great tool. We worked very closely with our company travel agency, which everyone was required to use. So we had every single employee's itinerary, where they're staying, car rentals, flights, you name it. So we immediately jump on, okay, do we have anyone in Las Vegas? And right away, we were also learning that this was at Mandalay Bay, right? So we said, do we have anyone at Mandalay Bay? And we're like, please say we don't.
Right.
We had something like 20 people staying there. So then we can pull up all of their cell phone data, email, their names, when they checked in, when they're going to check out. So within minutes, we had 20 people that we knew were staying there at that time. So we jump on it. We got to start calling these people. And we also have another tool for mass notification. So we could send a bulk canned text message with a polled response, press, we know you're at Mandalay Bay. There's an incident going on. Stay in your room. press 1 if you're safe, press 2 if you need assistance right now. And we were able to jump on that. So by the time it hit the news, we knew who was there and had reached out to them. We didn't reach all of them right away because some were sleeping, but that's how, just an example of the amount of data that came in lightning fast that we had to jump on right away and we're able to act on quickly. I think that was a lot of me.
Dude, I thought you were talking about, I didn't know you did that. I thought you were a security guard and you were going to tell me about how somebody got jumped in a parking lot once. That is insane, the amount of data sources you're able to pull together and like the action people were able to take because of it. Like that is literally life-saving. I mean, there were probably people that to this day are like, that's why I'm here.
Right. Yeah, we had it was a lot of that. It was so cool to see this stuff work the way it was intended to. You know, it wasn't like, oh yeah, one day we'll have these capabilities. Like we had them at the time, and it worked perfectly. And then to be able to present that to senior leadership when they're waking up the next morning, go, oh, by the way, this is what we handled last night in minutes. They're like, whoa,
right.
Cool. Yeah, it was a win for the department. Yeah, and
wow,
luckily,
so you totally love data. You get it.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it's, you know, you got to know what to pick from, what is useful and what isn't, you know.
The devil is in the details, isn't it? And like knowing what to base a decision on versus not, and act versus not, when it's a privacy intrusion versus when you might save somebody's life, you know, and you got to respect all that. It's
right. Yeah. I wish, in a way, I wish I was still in that role because I'd love to take you in there and show you around. It would blow your mind, some of the stuff that they can do.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad you're not in the role, too, because it sounds like you're living a pretty awesome life. I know we both have made and tried to build small humans, and that's, you know, for me, darn near full time lately. But you're able to spend more time doing that, too, because you're at home and you're, you know, started your own thing doing digital conversion, which I'm sure you planned out for 20 years and got funding and investors and made sure your wife was on board, right? That's how that went down?
That actually ties into a point that I was planning on making, kind of, because when I first got the idea of starting this business, I had absolutely zero idea how to do it. And in my mind, it was something that was like more involved than buying a house. Like it was, oh my God, I got to get a lawyer. I got to get this. I got to get a tax. I got to get a marketing firm. I'm like, oh my God. And then once it was all said and done, I found out that, you know, the 10-year-old kid who sets up a lemonade stand on the corner is probably closer to how it is to really starting up a business than, you know, I thought I was starting up Microsoft or, you know, it's like just, oh no. It was a lot easier than I thought.
That's awesome, man. That's definitely awesome. And you've been doing it for a while and you love it. So, I mean, that's great to see. Yeah. I love when people make the transition and it works out and they're, you know, it doesn't always. Sometimes people try things and it doesn't work out as well, but it's nice when at scale, it's as enjoyable as you hoped it would be at scale. You know, when you do one or two, it's not a big deal. When you got a stack of videos, and I mean, I had a box full of videos and I was like, what do we even do here? You know, and I'm sure you get that text message all the time from people and you do all kinds of conversions too of like stuff that's outdated, that's older than VHS, broken and whatever, which is, I mean, that I don't even want to take on broken and bad data when I work with data, you know, so for you to even accept that is pretty impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of a weird like mending of two worlds, like the old analog world where, you know, I do these film reels I've done film reels that were from the 30s. I mean, 40 years older than me, you know, but then trying to get that into the digital world and to present it to a form of media that someone can use and still access and have at least good quality of viewing.
100%, man. I know there's a channel I watch called Smarter Every Day on YouTube. Guy does a lot of smart stuff, and he did a really good video about old pictures and old video that are able to really not so much capture like, you know, the grand scheme and here's a big event, but inside of people's houses. And the stuff you're kind of seeing is like this window to the past of real normal people. This isn't some like celebrity. This isn't some guy who's like well documented by a painter who took my 20 pounds and tucked it in. It's all the chins. It's, you know, like the stuff you saw was me doing my first speech in high school. Like that
was awesome. That's awesome.
Unedited, man. There's nothing to that right there. So
that was super
that's
cool.
crazy to see.
And I hope you can use that in you know in some of your future work too, and just say, look, this is where, you know, I started out and all that. So that's awesome.
Well, I'm going to total CTA there and say, you know, comment if you want to see some of that old video. Let us know. I'll have somebody edit that out. That's totally cool.
Perfect.
And put that out. Because I love sharing that old stuff. Because I think there's a lot of people who are sitting on stuff like that and think that even just approaching it is a daunting task. You know what I mean? It's that closet I'm not going to think about. I feel so much better having sent it to you and knowing, hey, there's the 7, maybe 6, 7 videos I really care about. The rest, it's nice to have. And I don't think about it anymore. Like that whole thing is
Right.
no longer a problem. So
Right.
yeah, I'm going to probably want to use you to do some data organization too, a bunch of old storage drives and stuff too, just to
Cool.
kind of,
Sure.
yeah, I figured you wouldn't mind. But yeah, man, it's good to partner with people who are willing to do that and know what they're doing too, because yes, I could do it. And that's why I let it sit so long. And I think that's why people let things like this sit so long, is they think,
Right.
I'll get to it later. I know how to do it. It's not that complicated. But, you know, it's nice to do it. And it's the exact same thing with starting your business. You could have, and more people fail to start a business than fail after starting a business. Yes, a lot of businesses fail, but more people just don't get started because it's going to involve a lawyer and an accountant, and I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And I mean, kudos to you for starting it. You had to sit down at a spreadsheet and kind of lay out some numbers and be like, I'm not going to starve if I do this. How did you kind of go through that in transition?
Yeah. So again, to make a long story short, I'll tell you from start to finish. It all started with one video clip, which I could even send that to you if you want to. You could air it or whatever. It's only like 30 seconds long. But what happened was my family and I went out to breakfast with my brother and his family and our father. And my brother shows up with this little high 8 video camera. And I was like, well, what's that? And he said, well, let me show you something. So he opens it up and he hits play. It's one of my old college hockey games. I played hockey for Illinois State University. I had no idea he even had this. And then he goes, wait for this part. And then here comes the part where I get a breakaway and I go in and score. And I actually remember that goal too. And so I was like, this is awesome. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get this digitized. I got to find a place that does this. And I would love to post that on Facebook. So I started looking into places that do it. Had a really hard time and found, there was like, other places where you mail it in and then you wait 14 weeks and whatever. And the prices were really, really high for what I thought it should be. So my thought was, if I'm having this problem, a lot of people are having this problem. So what would it take for me to get whatever equipment I would need to do this? And if I had the lowest prices around, and that was one of my best selling points, and fast turnaround time, because everywhere else took forever. So I'm like, there's got to be a market for this. And so I looked into getting some equipment. And I started off real small. I'm like, you know what? I already have my corporate job. This will be just something fun to do on the side. And whether or not it makes money, who cares? It'll just be something that I can do. Yeah. And I want to say I started it in August of 2017. And I think that year, going back to my analytics, I have everything right here. Data. So that year, what I made in income would account now to a catastrophic month. So it was, absolute dirt. But it was just, at that time, it was just gas money. Just, it was more of a hobby.
Right.
2018, the full calendar year. I didn't really do any advertising other than I made a Facebook page, and I would occasionally make a Facebook post like, oh, hey, you want your tapes digitized, whatever. And
just words at that point, probably maybe not even a picture or like a random photo you're taking. You're still like entry level posting at this point, a couple days old on your page.
I think I had one setup where I could record or digitize one tape at a time. And then, so that next calendar year, again, I made what would now be a catastrophic month. So just because I didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. Then later it started becoming, what if I did, is this something I could ever do full time, and what would that take? So what it took to kind of get me to that point was in 2020, right around, right after the pandemic and everything. We had a leadership change at my corporate job. And I guess I want to be careful how I say it, but the easiest way to say it would be, had a feeling it should be time to look at an exit strategy. Like things just weren't going really well. So I thought, what if I built an actual website? So I did that, which had no clue how to do. But luckily I ended up using GoDaddy, and everything was super easy and not real expensive. Built my website, did a little more experimenting with ads, with Google ads, Facebook ads, things like that. And I was able to watch my number of customers per month grow and grow and grow, getting ready for an inevitable exit from the company that I worked for. September that year.
You're starting to make money at this point. You're like, wait a minute, this isn't crazy. There may be something here.
Yeah, not enough to solely survive off of.
No, right. But there's something.
Right. And then what I did was, if I'm going to do this and it's going to be sustainable, super easy, goal. As long as I make every month what I was taking home from the corporate job, if I make that or above, things should be fine. And so that was sort of my simple deadline. And things grew from there. And then the great thing about this line of work is you think about, a plumber or an auto mechanic, those are need based. Like if my toilet is shooting water into the ceiling, I need to call a plumber right now. So my work is not really need based. It can be if, for example, we've had sometimes somebody needs like a video made for a celebration of life and the service is on Saturday. Like, oh yeah, okay, I need to get on that right away. But there's an emotional tie to what this business is, because people, like you said, your first video from, sales or whatever. So there's, people get to see their children grow up again, or they get to see their grandparents who have passed on. So there's a real strong emotional tie. So I benefit with a lot of word of mouth advertising from that. So somebody gets something and it just means so much to them that they get on Facebook and blast it out to everybody. And so there's, I benefit a lot with that, but it's been good.
And it's so cool. We're all fighting for attention right now. Like YouTube has moved to shorts and Instagram has stories and Facebook has shorts because we got 15 seconds of attention. And it's like, why shouldn't that be the people we grew up with if we have it available to us to share? People are sharing pictures of themselves all the time of eating food and whatever. Why not share like, hey, this is back in the day, something cool that happened of even people who aren't here anymore. It's kind of cool to kind of remember that we capture this in time. So I don't know. I really appreciate what you're doing, man. I think it's a really cool service. I'm glad you just, jumped in and said, I'm going to do it. I love that you're able to like replace your full-time income and how you kind of thought about, well, I got to let it teeter and teeter and teeter until the switch. That's cool.
Yeah. Can we actually take a step back and talk about that switch there, Dave, if you don't mind?
Sure,
like
of course.
That maybe that night, that day, that week that you decided like this is my full-time gig.
Mm-hmm.
Did you set like a deadline? Like, hey, by this day, I'm gonna.
No.
Or by this dollar amount?
Like I said, I saw it coming 10 miles down the road that I was going to be leaving that company. So I had that time to prepare. And I feel very fortunate that I had that forethought to kind of get prepared and try to build the business a little bit before, whatever the inevitable happened. So what I did, let me pull up, I have everything. The way I do my numbers and my tracking is I do track every single job. I have the customer name, customer phone number, the date it came in, the date it was finished, the dollar amount of that job. And then
That's awesome. What do you use for that?
Just use Excel. I mean,
yes,
there's
you
so
do.
many other
I know you do. Link in description for an account. I absolutely am an affiliate vendor of that stuff because it works, for a one-person business, and you are doing great. Listen to all this stuff you're keeping track of for each project. That'll tell you a ton.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and we keep track of every item that we do. So how many if a job comes in, it's got 3 VHS tapes, 3 VHS-C tapes, 2 film reels. We track all of that. So what's cool about that is we can see our growth because let me pull up the current one. Oops.
Yes.
So here's an example. In 2017, the year we started, we did 83 VHS tapes. Okay. In 2018, which I think I had mentioned, I totally slacked off that year with the business and we was just like, if somebody needs a tape done, I'll do it, whatever. So we did 8 VHS tapes.
Okay. Yeah.
The next year, 2019, took things a little more seriously. We did 87. Okay. And this is just VHS tapes. I mean, there's still
again no Facebook ads really at this time. You're not really marketing. You're kind of just, I think I want to do this for real.
Yeah. So 2020 was when a little over halfway through the year was go time and launch, and we went full time. We did 357 just VHS tapes. Last year we did 1,113. So you can just see the growth. Now here's another one. This one's crazy. So it was May of this year that we made a big announcement that we did 25. We've converted 25,000 items from our launch. So that includes slides, photos, videotapes, everything. I think it was August when we announced that we had hit 50,000. So we went from 25,000 in basically almost 5 years to hitting another 25,000 in just a few months. So now we're going to hit 80,000 real soon. We might hit 100,000 by the end of the year. So it's like, I mean, that kind of growth. It's great.
Wow.
But it's also a little scary because.
Yeah, I bet it's terrifying. You're like, holy cow, I'm doing good. Now what? Like, how do I keep this going?
Because if like I think about like if I could go back 1 year and tell myself like here's what next year looks like, I'd be like, oh wow, like, I kind of worry about what if 1 year from now me comes back and goes, do you have any idea what's coming? I'm like, oh my God, like I don't know. So it's good, but it's a little scary too.
I love it.
We like to talk about data a lot on this podcast. And obviously you've been talking to us a lot about your data at this point. And it sounds like your job before was also a lot of data. Was there a point before that, like going to school or something, or a project you were working on where it kind of clicked for you that like data drives all of this? Like it is all data. Or even in that job, it sounds like a little bit of what you told us earlier, like being able to literally coordinate and basically rescue people in the span of minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's wild to think that you can sort of diffuse that remotely with just the data that you're gathering.
Yeah. I mean, there's data, of course, with everything. I mean, we did, budgetary, data and things like that of how much are we spending on contract security, and is it, are we getting a good return on investment? If we switched companies, what would it be? Things like that. Kind of another cool tool that we had was we worked closely with, we worked with our travel agency to know where everyone was at any given time, where they're staying and all that. We worked closely with HR to get every single employee across the country to get all of their home addresses. So we were able to, it was a Google Maps program, and we were able to put in a layer that had a pin for every single employee where they lived.
That's
so
awesome.
The one incident I can think of in particular, there was a helicopter crash like in Seattle somewhere. And we saw like the news come out about, not the news like broadcast news, but we have like little tickers that come across as, hey, helicopter crash in Seattle. We were able to go, okay, what's the location of that? Here it is. Do we have an employee that lives anywhere near there? Yes. We have somebody that lives like a mile away. So we're like, okay, let's reach out to them, because they might have a kid that goes to school in that area, and just make sure we can check on their family too. So we reached out to the employee, and he's like, yeah, I'm like in the area and I had no idea. So thank you for letting me know. So from Chicago, we're able to tell a guy in Seattle that a helicopter crashed right near his house, and he's like, wow, okay, well, thanks. I'll check on my family and we're good. But
right, so not even on the news yet,
Right. That's another tool we had, was like being able to know where everyone lives all at one time. We work closely with like other agencies too, federal, especially like, Hurricane Sandy 2012. And obviously that devastated, the East Coast, and we had 3 or 4 East Coast facilities. So we had to use a lot of weather data and analyze that, and work with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and get.
They love their data, man. They've got a ton of great data sources.
Yeah. In fact, actually something funny happened with that one. We had presented like kind of the projected path of the hurricane, which came from NOAA, the authority on weather. And someone in senior leadership said, well, where'd you get this data? We said, well, NOAA. They said, well, we need something better than that. I'm like, better than NOAA, like God or what? Like, I don't
right,
think
exactly. No, that is the best you got, buddy. Like
NOAA, right? It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah. What about you guys? Like, what's some of your backgrounds with data analytics, and what kind of war stories?
Yeah, I guess I never really say that on here much, do we, Ryan? We don't really talk about like how we got into this. I'm a pretty simple dude, man. I'm a regular C student, went to university at NIU, not any kind of A grade person there. Studied business administration. I worked some temp jobs, and I noticed that I was good with Excel, and I could get a stack of work that was chest high, and they'd expect me to put it in for type this data entry in for a week, and I did the first week. The second week, I decided to automate that through macros, and they're like, how'd you do that? And I said, well, I did this thing. And they said, well, that's your work for this week. And I said, I'm sure you have other work. What can I do? Like, how can I help? And they helped me grow into more of a tech role. I started learning SQL and all that stuff through them. It was a big survey company through a big food safety, multi-million-dollar company. So I was able to kind of level up. I learned reporting. I learned crystal reports back in the day is what I cut my teeth on. Most people don't even know what that is anymore, but that's how people used to look at data. And that's how we first took all this random passes of data and put it all together in one view. And it was really eye-opening for me to give this to a bunch of different companies, and people would get their stores closed. They would get promoted and all this stuff. I was like, whoa, data is super important. So I started with that, and that kind of just took me farther and farther into it. I got a job as a data architect and, built out big systems from there. But yeah, that's how I got into it. Ryan, how about you? I'm still getting Ryan into data, I think.
Yeah. This is, I guess it's not really new to me, but utilizing data in a way that's effective is sort of a thing that Rob is helping me grasp onto. I, similar to Rob, except I was an A student, went to NIU, failed my first class my junior year, almost dropped out of college, ended up graduating as a B+ student with a computer science degree with a double minor in marketing and business admin. Got really lucky my junior year and had a friend that I had met in the same program as me who was working for this marketing and IT company in downtown DeKalb. And he got me a job. Terrible interview. I definitely did not deserve to get the job based on my interview and my resume. Got the job, and I have been working there for 6 years as of next month.
That's awesome.
So I've been doing everything from building a custom customer relationship management software called Arrow in PHP and JavaScript to building, I've built over 250 websites for different small and medium-sized businesses all around the DeKalb County area. I manage Google Analytics, Google Ads, Facebook ads. So that's where the data really comes from. Unfortunately, the most of the material that I find online is for big corporate clients. So when I'm looking for marketing tailored towards these smaller or medium-sized businesses, we're doing a lot of like shotgun, throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks right now. So that's where Rob is helping me refine that skill.
Yeah, so he helped me build out like my main consulting page. My main consulting business is RDBI Solutions, whatever, link in description or whatever. But that's where people go and try to hire me to go lay hands and fix their data. Like I have a system I want to turn off. I need to convert it to something new. That's where they hire me. Or I have an agreement through Ryan's company where I can subcontract him and other employees of theirs too. So if it's a bigger project, I can bring more people on, or I can just send them to go do stuff, which is cool for me. But what I started with Ryan, I said, Ryan, how about I teach you this game? Like, it's not complicated. It's just learning the right questions to ask, making sure you're problem focused. That same data you had access to, you could have just trolled through and gotten nothing out of, but use it the right way. It's extremely effective. So it's kind of more of a mindset shift, I guess. But I'm also exposing him. I was like, hey, send me some data in this. And he sends me a .txt file. And I'm like, Ryan, we're going to teach you what Excel is, and we're going to get you there. And he's learning. He's getting there. It's not a complicated program, but it's habits, right? It's like a new way of thinking about it. And so that's where DataLAB started. DataLikeAbusiness.com is the website that kind of funded all this. And the whole idea is help other people along that journey. Help. Ryan's the sacrificial person for all the other people who have data questions. And maybe they're experts in their own area, but they don't really know how to look at or dig into data. And we've been building now in the background, kind of just chatting about what content we want to make to teach people about that. But we're actually right now approaching this the other way. So a previous podcast guest just graduated with a degree in data science, and he's actually building us a bot right now that's going to comb through LinkedIn, look for the word data, classify all those job descriptions into entry level, middle level, and senior, and kind of simplify it and say, these are the main things these jobs have. These are kind of the special, nice to have features that you should have to have a marketing analyst versus a finance analyst.
Right.
And from there, we'll define what we want to build. And we're also then I have a couple of courses we bought before. They're like hundreds of hours in Excel. Ryan has the surprise on those later. And we're going to index those and say, what are these things that people are trying to teach to people? Like, how are we trying to take all these skills that need to be filled and what's available for them to actually learn this? I mean, sure, you can go and Google Excel anywhere, but it doesn't mean you Google the right thing, Like, how do I learn actual financial analysis? How do I take that spreadsheet you have and actually decide which product's making me money that I should spend more ad spend on versus if I do this other product, it'll get me in the door and I can do a bigger data conversion later. You know what I mean? All those kinds of things are down the road, but you don't even need those. The first thing you need to do is start something, give it a shot, start writing down as it goes like you're doing, right? And then the data analysis is always there for later. It just needs you to do the business first. If you're waiting for the data to tell you how to do business, you'll be waiting forever. You have to go do business, but you have to check in with that data, right? It's like a cycle. That's so cool. You're keeping a spreadsheet of everything on how you're doing it by video and by type and by all that. I didn't know that.
I just like to see what comes in and what, kind of how often. We have some rare ones, like for example, last night and today, I have some Betamax tapes. Remember those? Those don't come in that often, but it's cool to kind of track like how long, usually every 5 or 6 months we'll get 1 or 2 or 3, something like that.
That's wild. You Laserdisc too? Those big
Oh man, I remember those. No, I remember when those came out, but no, we don't do those, but we do just about. It's actually easier to say what we don't do because we do everything else. Like we don't do 16 millimeter film. Those are real wide ones, but 8 millimeter and Super 8 we do. and we don't do reel-to-reel audio. That's about the only other thing that we don't do. But otherwise,
crazy.
any kind of tape, I mean, even those, 3.5 inch floppy disks, we convert those,
Even slides, I know
microcassettes.
you do too, because we have some old slides that feel, like from vacation slides or whatever.
Yeah.
But see, man, it's all data at the end of it. You're just taking the same thing. You're taking a digital picture of it. You're converting it and giving it to on a flash drive or a CD. I mean,
or cloud, like we did in your
cloud.
case.
Yep, a link. Yeah, it was great. A lot of money. You were just able to send me a link, and then boom, now I've got it. I know I'm not going to lose it. It's not going anywhere. It's
Exactly. And we back up everything on our end too. So we have everything we've ever done for every customer from day one. So if anyone, and this actually came into play one time, somebody had something like 20 tapes or something they gave us to do. And about a year later, he's like, lost the flash drive, totally gone. Let's just start the process again. Here's my 20 tapes. I was like, no, I've got everything you gave us. Here you go. Here's a new flash drive.
He's like, yes, jackpot. Because you never
Exactly.
know. Maybe it got a little damaged the first time, and the second time, you never know. With the old analog stuff, you're really wearing that tape each time you're using it. So, wild, man. No, that's cool.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. On occasion, what's funny is we'll get some things. I had a gentleman who brought me a bunch of tapes and I did them, no problem. And I was like, I noticed, I still remember the numbers. It was tapes number 31 and 32. And when he came to pick up his items, I'm like, just a quick word to the wise. Tapes 31 and 32 were of a adult nature, just, so you don't have the grandkids around while you're watching these. And he goes, what? I said, yeah. He goes, these belong to my elderly father. I was like, oh my God. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Yeah, man.
Yep, good times.
That's funny, man. But you never know. Like I never knew it was on some of those tapes.
Yeah, exactly. No, we've seen that.
My mom still has like the entire 85 Bears VHS taped, except the Super Bowl because we taped over it, and she wants to kill us for that. But I mean,
I probably have like 6 copies of that. People give me that all the time. I just did it last week. Somebody had a Super Bowl 20, the whole thing.
Recorded from the TV just like everybody else did, right?
And actually, what was funny, it was ironic. I even told my friends about this in a group chat. I was like, it was Monday night. So I was like, I'm recording this video of the Bears beating the crap out of the Patriots, 46-10, while the Bears in real life were beating the crap out of the Patriots. On Monday Night Football.
I love that. Doesn't normally happen.
That was kind of funny, kind of ironic.
Oh, man. No, I appreciate just even coming on and chatting about all this stuff, too. So I wanted to, one question I know we always ask, and Ryan, I'm going to steal your thunder here a little bit, and I heard you hit on it before, is, are you familiar with the term imposter syndrome and what that is and what that all is about? And
yes.
I can tell you're great at dealing with it, but I can also tell it takes work, too. And I'd love to know what you do to kind of get over that. Oh, yeah, I'm a total digital entrepreneur from I used to have security history. And so how do you get through that?
I guess the way I wouldn't say it's exactly imposter syndrome where I don't kind of feel like, man, I'm really like screwing up. I'm a failure and I'm this, that. It's not that, but it's also not like cockiness either. There's definitely not to that end, but I would look at it as kind of like chronic dissatisfaction in a way. So it's a kind of dissatisfaction is not the right word, but like when I have a really good month, I never put it this way. I'm never at the point where I say, this is where I need to be. It's always, okay, Tom Brady says that all the time when they said, you got 7 Super Bowls. Which one was your favorite? And he always says the next one, which is a great answer. And
right.
Maybe not this season, but anyway.
You're right.
So the way I look at it, like if I have a great month, I kind of look and go, okay, that was a great month. But what's next? Like we don't sit back and rest and say, okay, that's where we're going to settle. No, because the next month could be, actually, this just happened in the first week of September. I'm going to make another point after this about something my friend told me.
I love where
first
this
week
going.
of September, the phone didn't ring and I did not get a single email for an inquiry for a quote or anything for 5 days. That has never happened. One of my goals early on was 1 customer call per day is all I need. And now, way past that, which is great. But for 5 days, I'm like, is my phone shut off? Or because I have a business line on my cell phone. I'm like, did something wrong with my phone? Are my Google ads running? What is going on? And it had just a horrendous week. Followed it up with a great week, but it's like, it drove me nuts. So that's where I think one of the questions was, you had said you might ask was, has data ever burned you? Not that it's burned me, but it scared the hell
Oh no, it froze on me. Unless I froze on the world.
No, it's not you. I think it might be him, unfortunately.
My favorite is when he says, "When data's burned me," and then it freezes on him.
1 week later.
Yeah, I was, like I said, I was getting a little lag on my end, but I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, my connection looks like it's strong.
Yeah. At least they're not cutting your cable in the neighborhood today, are you?
Oh my gosh, what a disaster that was. Unreal.
So yeah,
Right in the
let's
middle
talk
of
about how
this, of course.
seconds after you said, "No, I've never been burned by data."
Right.
Yeah, and then we had the whole 1 week later transition by my editor, and here we are today. So
Right.
what happened?
Yeah. So yeah, AT&T was doing some work for somebody else down the street and ended up cutting some wire that cut off my service and my neighbors. And then it took him 24 hours to even get a tech to come out.
Awesome.
And then finally, once he did, then he was able to get it restored right away. But he had to go down the street to do it. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? Even the little things, that last mile, man, is just down the street from you. And no, it's hard to even explain to people because, like, what if you have VoIP? How do you even make that phone call to, like, say that the signal's down? And they're like, no, it's not. And you're like, no, seriously, like, I'm really
that's
not
the thing.
getting it.
When I sent in a request for AT&T to check into it, they said, yeah, everything looks good on our end. I'm like, well, it's not on mine.
Yeah, you got to love it, man. No, but that's funny. Actually, it's a perfect segue, too, because I said, you know what sucks, Ryan, is like you don't even have Dave's contact info. We didn't tell him at all about how we communicate in Discord and why we choose Discord and the benefits of that. But, I mean, we all came up, well, maybe you guys are after me then, but I know everybody my age came up through, like, Instant Messenger and AIM and, like, having those chat groups. Then it came to, like, forums were before that, if anybody knew forums and things like that. And there was a sense of community in, like, posting things. I mean, yeah, there's Reddit, and you can go to Reddit and post anything about anything to anybody. But it doesn't necessarily feel like you're part of that community just because you're posting in that Reddit, right? So I was like, Ryan, what are people using, right? Do they use Facebook Messenger? And then there was like that myriad of apps that came through from like 2005 to like now, right? We
had like Skype, we had like if you're talking VoIP, we had Ventrilo, TeamSpeak. I mean, Yahoo Instant Messenger was what I grew up on.
Dude, I know somebody just said they're on group.me that they've been on since like 2004 and they can't move to anything else. They just
and then even
MySpace.
MySpace had a group messenger that some of us used for a really long time before Facebook got popular.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it takes that community aspect. It's not just the video. And that's the other thing is people like to go just troll through YouTube and say, oh, I've watched all these 30-minute videos. Now I'm an expert. You have to go talk to the people who bang their finger with the hammer to learn. Otherwise, I'm just going to think you always hit it perfectly.
Right. Yeah, what's difficult, it's kind of a challenge with what I do is it's difficult to show off your work because these are people's private lives. You know what I mean? Like there's a privacy aspect to it. But I could certainly explain the process or why we do things a certain way or our capabilities, what we are able to do. But I had a customer maybe 2 weeks ago say, hey, can you please provide me with some references? And I said, I'm sorry, but no, I can't. I'm not just going to give out customer names. I said, I can provide you work that I've done for myself. Like I've done my own family videos. I can show you that. And then otherwise I'd say, just go check out my reviews, because they're 5 stars. So and there's all sorts of testimonials on there, especially there's some on my website. There's some on Yelp. There's some on Facebook and Google. So I just tell people, let that speak for itself and
just do good work.
Right. And hopefully I get a return phone call. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not really like, I mean, I love knowing you because anything I'm going to come across, I'm going to come back and be like, hey, at least I can kind of solve it. So I guess maybe there is more of a return customer aspect than I would have originally thought to with that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah. Well, I know you don't screw it up. That's nice. Thanks. And I was talking to other people about it and they're like, well, what do you do? Have it mailed in? And I couldn't even imagine like taking something from when I was, 5 and just dropping that in the mail and being like, well, this will work out perfectly.
It's funny is it's kind of 50-50. Some people are like, no way in my life would I ever do that. And other people are like, yep, no problem. Blink.
Gone. No problem.
Packages from all over the country.
Yeah, I bet. And I bet, there's a lot of reasons where it's fine. It's just, it scares me to think of that.
Oh yeah.
But you accept them too. You don't care. You're like, no, it works out okay most of the time. Good to know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good to know.
Actually, we haven't had one be lost yet, but I don't want to make. I don't
oh my God! Knock on wood. Didn't we just learn anything about the whole no data burning? I'm just kidding.
Right. Actually, it's so funny because I was just in the middle of saying how I'd never really been burned by data, and then since then, 2 things have happened: the AT&T thing, and then just this past week, Google sent me an email saying, "Oh, by the way, we're disabling your Google My Business profile." I'm like, for what? And they said, oh, something about your address goes against our standards. And it's a street address. What's the problem? So I've been back and forth with them for 2 days now. Now, if you Google digital conversion services near me, I don't pop up, which is a big problem because I pay them a lot of money for ads.
Yeah.
So I sent them a not so nice nastygram, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
To verify that you live where you live from hopefully a human.
Right.
Because
exactly.
the bots have
and
now...
for no reason.
Oh, wow.
So for 2 years, it wasn't a problem. And then, Wednesday, it was a problem. It's like, okay.
Great.
Yeah. So.
Oh, man.
Not happy
good luck.
about that
Let's know how
one,
that turns out.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of ads, if we can, Dave, I want to talk a little bit about your process for that too, and maybe a little bit of the data behind it.
Sure.
Did you test the waters on a bunch of platforms? Did you just stick to Meta and that area? How did you decide to start ads versus like a website with SEO or anything like that? Like, is there a process behind putting that system together?
You just nailed every point on exactly what I went through to try to learn how to do this. So when I started, because I think I talked last time about how, this was just a side thing and I never did any advertising. It was just, hey, Facebook.
It was like 30 and then you went
is
1 and then 30 and then you're like all of a sudden 1,000. So whatever took you from that 10x jump, right?
Right. So like I said last time, it was like around early April of 2020 when I kind of got the idea that I might have to do this full time and sort of make my slow goodbye from the corporate world. That's when I started looking into advertising. And at first, again, having no clue what I was doing or how it worked. And if you would have asked me back then what SEO stood for, I probably would have thought it was a title at a corporation, But so my approach was throw everything at the wall all at once in small increments and see what works. So I used Yelp, I used Google Ads, I used Facebook or Meta. What else did I mean, anything you can think of. I started just putting a little bit of money towards it and putting out a little ad, nothing crazy. It was just a photo of a bunch of different types of tapes that we can do. And then some of them, it was kind of neat how you could do it. Actually, I found Meta is really the best for what I do because you can pick a geographic area and I can just set a radius that says 35 miles and I want an ad to run for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you can adjust how much you want to spend. Like if I want to spend $20 on an ad, if I want to spend $100 on an ad, what I found is it 100% translates to how much business comes in. If I spend 20, I'll get X amount. If I spend 100, the phone blows up for weeks. Wow. So it's so cool how that works. Now, one horror story I had was, I hate throwing him under the bus, but Yelp. So with Yelp, I was doing ads and what was another one? Nextdoor. I was using that one too, just now that I thought about it. So with Yelp, I started getting, I was paying for ads and I was getting reviews that were coming in that were fantastic. And then all of a sudden I go into my business profile. It says, you've got 5 reviews or 10 or whatever it was. And we've labeled these 5 or 4 as not recommended. So they weren't viewable to the public. And I'm thinking, why would you do that? And all these ads were Dave did a great job. Dave did this. Dave had fast turnaround time. I'm like, what is the problem? I think they have an algorithm where if someone uses your first name, they say the ad's not recommended because they assume you asked the person to write it or something. So I stopped advertising with Yelp, and then they called me nonstop and they kept saying, hey, you're not advertising anymore. What's the problem? And I would vent and I would say, here's the problem. You guys are blocking my great reviews. And I said, I use several other platforms who don't do that. So they're like, well, what can we do to, get your business back? I'm like, well, stop blocking my reviews. And they're like, okay, well, we'll look into that. So then I get a call back. Yeah, our IT people say it's an algorithm and they don't have an answer, but would you like to continue advertising? No.
Yeah, right. So we didn't fix your problem, but can we still take your money?
Right, exactly. But
That's
Meta and Google, nothing like that. I mean, I can't believe that that's even a thing. Like if I were the CEO at Yelp and I found out that was going on, I'd be like, IT, fix that like 10 minutes ago.
And I've heard things like that with like Angie's List and like those kinds of paid service where it's like they'll hold some of your reviews unless you get so much dollars in, and then you're at the top again. Now you're at a recommended sponsor level. Because to your point too, it's under like a safety because of I don't know why they're, like you said, the first name. I don't know why theirs does it, but it's something like that too, where you don't want a bunch of bad ones. And I've had random reviews on my page too, like on my RDBI solutions, where it said like Rob bad, bank not good, does horrible, and it's like 1 star, and I'm like, can I get this removed? Like this isn't even a human talk, and no, that one's stuck. But you know what I mean? Like, and they'll eventually remove it, but it's like, that'll
Yeah.
stick there for a while. But meanwhile, the good ones are getting hidden. So interesting. I think a lot of people don't realize that happens too on the other side. That, oh, you got all these good reviews. We want to share that with people too. Just pay us a little bit more money, and we'll share your good reviews as well.
Right. And a couple of points. One is, if that's part of their algorithm where if first name, then not recommended, what about, isn't something like 70% of all small businesses are run by one person? So like, I don't see why using a first name should be such a horrid thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that. And then the other one, after having a business that gets reviewed, holy cow, did that open my eyes up to how important reviews can be. So like when I review something, I'm like, if it's great service, oh my God, 6 out of 5 stars. I'm,
Yes.
For example, I had someone who, I think I promised them like a 4-day turnaround time, and I ended up doing it in 24 hours. And the guy's like, oh man, I'm going to give you a great review. I'm like, oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Right.
And his review comes out and it's like, oh my gosh, Dave did this. He was great customer service, like amazing turnaround time, 1 day, 4 out of 5 stars. I'm like, what did I do?
What I miss? Exactly. Yeah, you got to love that.
Yeah, exactly. Like what could I mean, other than drive it to your house, what else could I have possibly done?
For what it's worth, in my line of work, we found that one of the best ways to support a local business, especially, is a Google review with an image attached.
Yep.
Like the amount of traffic that you can draw to a Google My Business profile by just having a couple good reviews on it is absolutely wild. And that's in a similar vein to SEO. Websites and search algorithms really like that you have new content. They like when you like write blog posts and stuff. The Google My Business algorithm loves when you get consistent amounts of reviews. So being able to find a way to consistently get those from the people who are purchasing your product or service is one of the biggest ways to game the system, I guess.
And that's why you see a lot of companies will say, give me a review on LinkedIn, Google, or whatever, and we'll give you $5 off your service next time or something, because
which is technically against the rules. Google specifically says you cannot give a monetary value to a Google review, but they also can't moderate most small businesses because, there are millions.
I think still the best form of advertising I get is word of mouth and people who post in community pages. So let's say I have a customer from, this happens all the time. I'll have someone from Libertyville, and there's like a Libertyville moms page or something like that. And I'll, do my best, get as great a service as I possibly can. And then she'll say, hey, I'm going to post this on the Libertyville moms page or whatever. And then over the next few weeks, I'll have like 5 or 6 customers that come and say, hey, I saw this from so-and-so on the Libertyville moms page. And it's great advertising. That's absolutely free. There was one from a customer from Buffalo Grove who did the same thing. There was a Buffalo Grove community page or something and posted it on there. And I had probably between 5 and 10 customers in the next few weeks from Buffalo Grove that said they saw that exact same thing. So
that's
I
wild.
never ask a person to do that, but if they offer to, I'm pleased. That would mean so much to me,
Oh, for sure. Dude, I backed the last video link I posted on my LinkedIn and Facebook. I said, hey, man, if you want to help a small business, we currently had 21 subscribers. I think now we're up to 22. So we're taking way off. But I'm like, it means a lot to just click the link, hit subscribe, and share it, even if you never even look again when you're starting off, because it's just like, oh, one more person kind of believes in you. And I think what's funny is people don't realize that helps so much. They're like, oh, what does this guy want? And it doesn't have to be like a long, elaborate review, right? Like you don't have to like...
Right.
I met Dave in 1902 and we served together in Nam. And it's none of that. It's just like, yeah, he did what I asked him to do well. That's perfect.
You know what? Another thing that makes it easy is, I do try to go above and beyond with every customer. I listen more than you talk, that kind of thing, all of that. What I found very early on was that the average bar for just customer service is set so low. I mean, with so many of these customers, I just do what I'm supposed to do. I take their tapes, I turn around and give them, here's a DVD and a flash drive. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm like, what service are you getting somewhere else? Like, I literally just did what you want me to do.
Isn't that wild? I was just, what's funny is I was on the receiving end of that and I was equally as surprised. It was like candy all over again. When I was on click your Google link you sent me and I'm watching videos from 38 years ago. It was like wizardry. You know what I mean? It's just... It's that visceral feeling you can't bring back, It's just, it's wild.
That's what helps is there's so much emotion tied to the service I provide. So,
if you ever want to shoot a video commercial,
I'm not, like I said, I'm not like a plumber. I'm not need based where you need me right now in the next 5 hours, but the emotional attachment
Oh, no, you're right. I totally am with you on that. The need-based areas there. So if you want to shoot a video commercial or something, I'm sure my team would love to play around and help with that too. Because do you ever do any data tracking with your Facebook data? Do you ever like export it and see which ones do well and see over time how they change or stuff like that?
So Facebook does provide all sorts of data with this is how many impressions there were. This is where it appeared. It even gives the demographic of who viewed it. You know, people between 18 and 25 did this. And of course, the demographic that's always the largest are the boomers. They've got the most analog items. You know, they've got film reels. They've got the most VHS. They've got, you know, all those things. So so that's really my best market group. Then the younger generations like the Gen X and to some extent millennials, they usually come and bring in their parents' items and say, hey, my parents had this from when I was a kid. I'd like to get this converted. So it's kind of funny. Our customer base is very diverse and is, you know, by age, everything. So it's that's such an awesome part about it.
That's you just nailed my group, man. I found stuff my parents had that's like, it's my memories, but they were at their house. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of people who have that. And I think that's going to happen too in the next generation. Like it may move from this analog to digital to be like more of a digital to digital consolidation. Like I've got all these old Google Drives and OneDrives and Drives, and can you help me put those together? I bet you'll find some of that in the future too. It's a wild service that you're providing, man. I very much appreciate you, helping me with it and just being on the show and talking about some of the data behind it. That security thing is nuts. I can't imagine like living through that kind of life and then switching to this kind of life. And would you ever go back? You ever want to go back to security again, or is it self-employed forever?
This is much easier.
Yeah, I figured. Well, thanks, man. Anything you want to say, Ryan, too? I know you wanted to ask about ads.
So, I mean, at the end of every one of our episodes here, Dave, we like to give our guests like 60 seconds to shout out anything, whether that is your social media profiles, your business's website, a charity that you'd like to support. So you've got the floor. If you want to give us 60 seconds, let people know where you're at and what's important to you.
I appreciate it. So like I said, the company's called Midwest Digital Conversions. You can find us on Facebook just by searching for Midwest Digital Conversions. Our website is www.midwestdigitalconversions.com. And if you want to give us a call, it's 224-475-7730. I work out of my home, so my hours are pretty much all the time, 7 days a week. Just set up an appointment and you can drop off anything you have. We do basically everything except reel-to-reel audio or 16 millimeter film, but just about anything else, beta, PAL formats, we can do all that. So I really appreciate you guys giving me this platform too.
Oh, dude, I appreciate you doing the work you do. I know you did damage stuff too. I wanted to make sure you include that because people think like, hey, I've got this old broken cassette. I remember you never talking. I had one that was cracked, and you're like, worst case scenario, I can take the film out and still record it. So like, if you're afraid of losing stuff, you're able to do wizardry, man.
Yes,
I'm happy.
We do tape repair, and we repair tapes, and we do not charge for that.
And I'm happy to just share that to the world, man, because that's a service you're doing that really, it brings back those visceral feelings to people. You're bringing back memories. So appreciate you doing it.
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, guys.
All right, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up and roll that beautiful outro. Thank you for joining PodcastLAB Got Business on our journey to discover just how everything is data. If you want to watch the next episode or one of our favorites, click on the thumbnails here for more Podcast Lab and find us wherever you like to listen to podcasts.